Hello, and thank you for joining us for another installment of Whether or Not. I'm your host, Rebecca Newell, with your forecaster, Jonathan Domow. And Jonathan, what can you tell us about that winter weather system that's coming in this weekend?
That's a great question, Rebecca. We are expecting a lot of impacts from this winter storm that I'll get more into in my forecast.
Well, I'm excited to hear more about it, but right now, here's Nature in the News.
A less commonly thought of impact of winter storms is taking shape for millions of Americans as natural gas prices rise amid looming storm concerns. As temperatures drop to frigid levels, many people turn to natural gas to heat up their homes. Prices have jumped 25% ahead of below freezing conditions for many parts of the United States, on top of already high prices according to some experts. Analysts warn that even businesses will suffer higher costs, causing them to turn to other forms of heating. On average, an American household pays around $1,000 to heat their home from November to March, according to the National Energy Assistance Directors Association. So when temperatures dive lower and lower this winter, the price to heat your home will unfortunately do just the opposite.
In central Oklahoma, an unusual burst of winter tornadoes tore across the region on the morning of January 8th. The National Weather Service has confirmed 5 tornadoes, including an EF2 in Purcell and several EF1 tracks near Shawnee Twin Lakes, and Winona, along with an EF0 near Lake Thunderbird. Damage surveys show a pattern more typical of April than January. State climatologist Gary McManus noted that while Oklahoma has recorded January tornadoes before, the pace is accelerating. Since 1950, the state has seen about 30 January tornadoes, but over a dozen have occurred in just the past 5 years. The Purcell EF2 tornado carved a path strong enough to flip a semi-truck, with a local news station chief meteorologist claiming it may be the worst damage he has ever seen.
Over 100 vehicles smashed into each other, creating a massive pileup on Interstate 196 in Michigan earlier this week. The incident took place near Hudsonville, about 2 hours west of Detroit. Officials are blaming the excessive snowfall powered by the lake effect snow machine for the crash. Michigan State Police closed the highway in both directions to remove each car and over 30 tractor trailers. Multiple drivers report traveling at speeds of 20 to 25 miles per hour prior to the accident, well below normal travel speeds. This is the latest impact of major winter systems traversing the country, with the National Weather Service issuing warnings for extreme cold temperatures or the potential for dangerous winter storms. Snow fell as far south as the Florida Panhandle, with more snow on the way for many parts of the South this weekend. If you ever get caught in a dangerous situation on the highway involving snow, remember to take it slow.
In Hawaii, a rare flash of white light arched over the summit of Mauna Kea. Not a rainbow, but a freezing fog bow, an optical phenomena seldom seen in the tropics. The arc appeared on January 5th after a Kona low, or a low-pressure system that moves in from the west, swept across the islands, dropping 8 to 10 inches of snow on the peak of Mauna Kea. After the system passed and sunlight hit a dense cloud of fog lingering over Mauna Kea's summit, a pale, colorless bow appeared. Fog bows, although forming in a similar way to rainbows, lack color. This is because fog droplets are tiny, sometimes even just 1/10 or even 1/100th the size of a raindrop, so sunlight doesn't refract and separate into distinct colors. Instead, light waves overlap, producing a pale arc with a faint reddish edge. While fog bows are uncommon anywhere, they are especially unusual in Hawaii. But as climate patterns shift and grow more erratic, the island's higher elevations may see more extreme winter events in the years ahead.
I mentioned earlier an impactful snowstorm set to hit State College, but before we take a look at that, I want to draw your attention to this really interesting fact that I found. From November 1st to January 20th of this year, State College has observed 9.5 inches of snow, but the record 41.7 inches, set all the way back in 1978. We're going to get a hefty amount of snow this weekend, but nowhere near 40 inches of snow. Now, let's see what you can expect this weekend. On Friday, will be dry precipitation-wise here, but this cold front is going to make things nice and breezy. You could expect that feels-like temperature to be heavily affected by this cold front. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't snow chances here on the map. Well to our north and northwest up here in Erie, Pennsylvania is going to see some snow chances, as well as some lake effect potential out in parts of Michigan and Wisconsin. And even down south here, there's a chance of some elevation-based snow, but also the chance of some freezing rain here in parts of southern Virginia. That's going to make driving and any forms of ground transportation relatively difficult. Now, Saturday is when chances of snow start to move in, but when, it depends on where you are. The more west you are here around the southern Midwest, that's going to be a little bit earlier in the day, but by the time it gets here to State College, that is going to be well into the overnight hours and especially into Sunday morning. Now, this is the most impactful day of the weekend, so let me break it down for you. Here in State College, it's going to be snowing, and it's going to be snowing hard. Some models are putting us at 10. Some of us are putting at as high as 15 inches of snow, but really only time will tell with the exact pinpoint amount. But you can definitely expect at least 6 inches of snow with about 80 to 90% confidence here. As well north of us here, parts of New England, especially Boston, Massachusetts, and north of Boston will experience the same amount of snow as us, but it gets a little bit tricky along the coast. There's a huge chance of mixed precipitation in parts of southern New Jersey as well as Delaware that could turn into snow or rain at any chance, which is going to make ground transportation even more difficult than it would be in the snow. And there's a huge chance of some significant ice accretion in parts of Virginia. Now, we're going to kick things off for the weekend on Friday at 26 degrees, but again, it's going to be breezy, so it's going to bring those feels-like temperatures well below 26 degrees, all the way down to 2 degrees actual temperature on Friday night, but we're still looking dry in terms of precipitation. It's Saturday when we get to see those PM snow shower chances, temperature of just 14 degrees, and the snow intensifies Saturday night, and the temperature bumps up to 7 for an overnight low, still not much better than 2 degrees. And by Sunday, that's when the heaviest snow will have arrived, still 15 degrees, still in the teens, and you're going to want to be bundled up for not just the temperature, but also the snow. We're going to throw it now to Frank Gargione for a feature on the weather of D-Day.
D-Day is one of the most important battles in world history. The Allied invasion of Normandy changed the world as we know it today and marked the beginning of the end of World War II. But did you know that the invasion actually had to be delayed one day and may have never happened? Let's take a look at how weather impacted one of the most strategic military feats ever.
June 1944. Most of Europe is under Axis control, and it's time for the Allies to launch the largest amphibious invasion in human history. More than 150,000 Allied troops, thousands of ships, and thousands of aircraft are ready to storm the beaches of Normandy. However, one factor threatens to stop everything before it begins: the weather. Operation Overlord, better known as D-Day, depended on a very specific set of environmental conditions. Moonlight, tides, wind, cloud cover, and calm seas were all conditions essential for landing aircraft, giving airborne drops, and providing seaborne reinforcements. For months, Allied planners waited for the perfect convergence of all factors. The date was originally set for June 5, 1944. Military strategists, led by Supreme Commander General Dwight D. Eisenhower, had identified only a handful of days each month that offered the required full moon for visibility and low tide to expose beach defenses. In the days leading up to D-Day, weather observations from Allied ships stationed across the North Atlantic, something that the Germans did not have, detected falling air pressure and strengthening winds, signaling the development of a major storm system moving east towards the English Channel. The Allies had a much more robust network of weather stations in Canada, Greenland, and Iceland, and even had observations by secret agreement from weather stations in the neutral Republic of Ireland. Behind the scenes at Southwick House in southern England, Allied meteorologists from the U.S. Army Air Corps, the British Meteorological Office, and the Royal Navy convened twice daily, reading over the latest observations. These forecasters worked without satellites, computers, or radar, relying instead on ship readings, surface reports, barometric trends, and educated interpretation of atmospheric fronts. This forecast operation relied entirely on human interpretation, pattern recognition, and experience, making the decision one of the highest pressure forecasting calls in history. By June 4th, Forecasts indicated that conditions on June 5th would not be suitable for the invasion. Winds were too strong, clouds too low, and waves too rough. Eisenhower faced a critical choice: proceed into what looked like a disaster, or delay and risk shaking the confidence of his troops and losing the element of surprise. This is where Group Captain James Martin Stagg comes into play, the senior Allied meteorologist. After reviewing the data and collaborating with U.S. forecasters, Stagg advised Eisenhower to postpone the invasion by 24 hours, betting on a narrow weather window on June 6th. This was a massive risk. If the forecast was wrong, thousands of soldiers could be lost at sea before ever reaching the beaches. But delaying longer would risk losing secrecy, surprise, and the carefully planned tidal and moon conditions required for the landings. The dawn of June 6th was far from perfect, however. Clouds obscured vision, winds still churned the channel, and many paratroopers were dropped off course. But the critical elements held. The storm weakened just enough. Winds were manageable and seas became passable. The tidal window aligned perfectly. Landing craft reached the beaches and airborne operations were possible. At the same time, German forecasts predicted continued severe weather, leading many German commanders to believe an invasion was impossible under such conditions. Some senior officers were even away from their posts due to confidence that no landing would occur. German commander Erwin Rommel actually left France for Germany the day prior to celebrate his wife's birthday, only to be caught off guard when Allied troops landed the next morning. By noon, clouds began to part the beaches of Normandy. The forecast had held, and with that sliver of opportunity, Allied forces established a foothold that would eventually lead to the liberation of Western Europe and the beginning of the end of World War II. Today, meteorologists look back on the D-Day forecast as one of the most important in history, a testament to early forecasting skills, international collaboration, and decision-making under uncertainty. That single prediction didn't just save lives, it helped shape the course of history, a moment where meteorology helped change the world. For Weather or Not, I'm Frank Gargione.
Thank you, Frank, for that incredible feature. Let's just take a peek back to what we can expect for this weekend. 26 on Friday, 14 as the PM snow begins on Saturday, and just 15 degrees on Sunday when the heaviest snow is falling. But I want you to pay special attention to the low temperatures for this weekend. 2, 7, and 9. What do those all have in common? Well, there are single-digit numbers, so you're going to want to be bundled up, even double bundled up, jacket underneath the jacket if you are out there for any reason this weekend. Now, let's take a peek into what we can expect for next week. You'll notice that the average temperature bar is 29 degrees, and you'll notice that our temperatures are going to be nowhere near that. We're going to kick things off on Monday at just 18 degrees before bumping it up to 19 degrees before we reach our high spot for the week on Wednesday, just 22 degrees before returning back down to 16 and then 17 again on Friday. You'll notice here up in the icons that we move into a cloudy, partly cloudy pattern, but no precipitation. So if you've had it up to here with the snow, well, I got good news. There is no snow in the immediate near future for you. You can enjoy some clouds, but no snow will be falling from those clouds. Be sure to stick around to hear the answer from our earlier Whiz Quiz question.
And the answer is B, 1/4 mile or less.
And there's actually two other requirements that meteorologists need to classify a snowstorm as a blizzard, and that's duration, so we're looking at periods of time over 3 hours, as well as sustained gusts of 35 miles per hour or more.
Thank you, Jonathan. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for tonight's installment. Join us again next week for another episode of Weather or Not.